It's Mummy, Sybil Bruncheon, coming to you live from Cherry Grove on Fire Island, and this is the view from our so-called Lido deck. It's so cute. There's the Great South Bay, and where you often see my firework displays on 4th of July. There's Long Island in the distance, and Sayville and Patchogue and the Hamptons off to the east, and New York City off to the west, and we're having a beautiful sunset. This is the oddest end of season that I've had in a long time. The weather is breathtaking. It's literally like summer, but it's as if COVID wiped out everything. Or it's that Harry Belafonte movie, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, or whatever it is, where he and Inger Stevens or Elizabeth Montgomery or Linda Hunt or something are the only survivors of an unexplained nuclear holocaust. Anyway, it's so strange to be here. Even the Ice Palace, which is right there, that's not the Ice Palace, it's there in the distance above the sign that says pizza. Usually even they have lights on, off-season lights. There's no lights on. There's nothing. It's just beyond empty and peaceful. There's not a sound. There's not a sound. There's not even much air. I mean, the flags are moving. You could see the flags moving at half staff for Dianne Feinstein, but there's almost no breeze here at all. The trees aren't moving. Nothing is moving. This is our last night here, and there's Craig, our wonderful dock master and fire marshal here, and he's downstairs from us. And then we've got the other residents down there. Victor and Rick are over here, and there's Cherry's and Floyd's, and it's just Summer Place Realty. Hello, Bill. This is the last night we're here. We're closing up, and we're going to be driving back to Pennsylvania. I wanted to show you this. First of all, this is what a house looks like when it's being closed up. I mean, you could see everything is in disarray. Groceries are being packed, summer clothes, etc. I mean, it's kind of a mess, although it's orderly mess. Oh dear, underwear. One never shows one's dainties. But things in the dish drainer being washed. The refrigerator is mostly empty now. So, and you can see the disarray, but it won't be disarray by tomorrow morning. I've even given away my orchids. I'm going to take my little bonsai tree, but I gave my orchids to Mark Atten. So this is what the house looks like. For those of you that have seen my shows and my Tour-ettes other years back at Bottoms Up, I used to show you what the inside of the house looked like, what the garden looked like, the pots all stacked around, and it was they were ready to be put to sleep for the winter. The perennials were tucked away. Here's my beautiful, for those of you that were here in the spring with me, here's the marigolds and the beautiful Dusty Millers. These Dusty Millers are all orphans. They were all dug up from other flower boxes around the property. Some of them had survived, surrounded by dead relatives. So there were whole boxes of dead Dusty Millers, and then there'd be one plant. Well, I dug them carefully up and brought them up here with some marigolds, and I've never done that before with marigolds and Dusty Millers, and I've got to tell you something. I will do it again next year. I'm hoping these Dusty Millers and marigolds actually self-seeded, because I would love to have this again next year. Here's our upper deck. This is wonderful, and there's my bladderworts and my wonderful Japanese painted ferns, and here's my little hens and chicks. And then down here's the garden all packed up. Everything's going to be put in the sheds, the furniture and the umbrella and everything, and then the pots are all going to stay. Maybe the lantana and the ageratums will self-seed, or the straw flowers. Here's more of my orphan Dusty Millers that are, lovely. Those New Guinean patients certainly won't survive. Depending on how harsh the winter is, maybe some of these things will survive again next year. My bachelor buttons, my yarrows, certainly the gay feathers, Liatris. So, and look what I showed this in the last video. Oh, my Montauk daisies just decided to bloom today, so I won't even get to see them. We'll be leaving, and they will bloom for nobody, I guess. Anyway, most of these are annuals. There's my rosebush, which will be, I hope, back. And the sunflowers were a complete surprise. So anyway, this is my heuchera, which I've had for like 15 or 20 years. This is my new benches, which I didn't even get to enjoy. My flower boxes made out of old screen doors. Those are all lined with screens that I repurposed that were torn. The patio deck screen doors were falling apart, and we replaced them, and I took the screening material and lined my flower boxes. You know, Mummy is a champion repurposer. There's my wonderful gazanias, and they're running out of fuel now, and I love gazanias. They're so wild. These little blue flowers are, of course, evolvulus or dwarf morning glories. There's my, I've had these for 20 years. Those are my balloon flowers right there and over here. And look, they even tried to throw one last throw of blossoms. You're so brave. And of course, who doesn't like scaviola? Anyway, this is a garden that a little over a year ago, I didn't even imagine I would have. If you remember, we didn't have a house in August last year when we were told that we had to leave the house that we'd been in for 17 years. So we scrambled, and I gave away all sorts of possessions that I would never have given away. And I sold things that I would never have sold. Memorabilia, pieces of history of Cherry Grove and Fire Island and the Pines and everything. I gave away all sorts of possessions and everything because we didn't know we were going to have this. And then at the last minute, this came into our hands, and we managed to get housemates who alternate with us out here, 2 weeks on, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, whatever. And they're wonderful. We adore them. Anyway, the whole thing is I think what I'm trying to say here is that I've said goodbye to Fire Island in October or even in November, packing up, closing up, everything. And for years, it was so different. It was, you know, a small studio with tons of leaks and pots and pans under every window. We didn't know what was going to happen over each winter. We didn't know what we were going to find in the spring, and we found some pretty disastrous things in the spring. Ceilings that had caved in, a dead raccoon, shocking things. This house is being maintained by its owner so much more beautifully, and it makes it sort of harder to leave because it's so lovely. And even though we lost several weeks this year to the weather and to work, it's coming back just for these 2 or 3 days to close up has been wonderful. And I'm so grateful. And I think that's where I'm coming to, is that my life feels gigantic. I feel like I was at bottoms up 30 years ago, not last year. Last year, we had just signed the lease on this place, and we're moving our plants and our possessions over here after several deck sales of losing my stuff. We signed all this. We got it all done right after the beginning of September, mid-September. And here we are, a year later. So much has happened since then. Again, I feel like I've lived 30 years since that time. So I guess what I'm saying is that I remind myself every day that everything I see and hear and touch and smell and taste and hold in my hand and my heart, everything around me is only borrowed. I must remind myself always to be present, to be mindful, to be grateful.